Hey everybody, I'm your host Mike Downer, and I am here with Beyond the Crust, episode 2, talking to Carrie Peterson, the owner and founder of Northern Lights Pizza. How you doing today, Carrie?
I'm just stinking Danny, Mike. How are you doing?
Um, Better now that I'm talking to you, Carrie.
I
So
say,
today I just wanted to ask you, what separates a truly great pizza from an average one, and what should the consumer look for?
well, I guess again, it gets a little subjective. Um,
In your opinion.
or in my opinion, the closer food gets to real, actual food, like the best food you can eat is single ingredient food, like beef, turkey, egg, right?
Okay.
What God made to eat is the best thing you can do. And we try to stay as close to that as we possibly can. Some things are unavoidable. As an example, pepperoni, those recipes have a preservative in it that is, not the best thing in the world, but, if you don't make a diet of pepperoni, you're going to be fine. Um, it's basically a kind of salt. But as we try to get as close to real as possible. And so I'll tell you, when we selected, say, the pepperoni that we used, we
Yeah.
tried hundreds of pepperonis to find one that wasn't too greasy, didn't, that had good flavor, that had, um, you know, just as clean a label as you can find for pepperoni. I thought I'd never eat pepperoni again, but we just tried so much. And it's the same thing with this is off channel a little bit, but the same thing with our cakes. We now serve a chocolate cake. It's Belgian chocolate. I thought I would never be able to eat chocolate again. I tried so many cocos from all over the world, different butterfat levels, and then different amounts of them, and all this junk just to give the best possible thing that we could make. So our cakes are made with real buttercream, Belgian chocolate, stuff you could make this in your kitchen.
It sounds delicious.
They're trouble. Yeah. So but back to pizza, it's the same thing. If the to me is this, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to put this in my body. I'm going to
Yeah.
put this in my children's body. I'm going to put this in my grandchildren's body. And a lot of people don't think this way anymore, but um, if you love your neighbor, you're going to feed them good food. So I'm serving a pizza that I'm proud and happy to serve to my own family, or it's not going out the door. Someone else can do that.
Sounds good. So, Carrie, what are the 5 pillars of a great pizza?
The five pillars, well, you got to have a good sauce, you have to have a good crust, you have to have the good cheese, you have to have good toppings, and you have to have um, you really have to have, we'll go back to good toppings in a minute, but you really have to have good processes and training and consistent um, handling of them. Saying you can have the best ingredients to make a cake, but if you put the eggs in after the cake comes out of the oven, you don't have a good cake,
That makes sense.
right?
That makes You bet.
Pick
So,
on my son. I'm going to put this all over the internet, but I don't care because he deserved this. But one time he called one day. He decided he wanted to make a box cake at home, and he called. He's crying because it just didn't turn out right. We get home, and he had put all the liquids and eggs and stuff in a pan and put it in the oven. He never opened the box. Never put never put the mix into the cake, right? And he couldn't understand what went wrong. And he said, "Well, it didn't. The instructions didn't say open the box." So the point is, you have everything you need for something, but if you don't put it together in the right order, you're going to end up with what do we say, a pan full of disappointment.
oh, that's funny. I bet she hasn't lived that one down, has he?
Oh heavens, no! And you think we let him? No.
How many years ago was that?
Oh my gosh, he was a kid. He was probably, I don't know, 12.
That's great. So, can you tell me why dough is the foundation of a good pizza?
Well, you know, when you're eating a pizza, the, it's just so foundational because like I said, you have to have a good sauce, you have to have a good crust, you have to have good cheese.
Yep.
Um, it's one of the primary things you taste when you're eating a pizza. You're tasting that bread, and you can have. I mean, it can ruin the pizza for you. I've eaten pizzas that just ruined. Like you mentioned earlier that you're from New York. Um, we went to Times Square and we tried all these pizzas up and down Times Square because we wanted to hear what this was all about, and they were all the same. There really wasn't any different from one stand to the next. The
Right.
pizzas were that you think it was one place, um, but what they did was um, they used a dough that was completely fermented. It tasted a little like beer. It had a little beery
Okay.
taste to it, and it blistered on the bottom. So they were I knew from eating that pizza immediately that's what they were doing. They let the dough completely ferment out before they make a pizza out of it. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or another, but
Right.
because again, it depends on your taste. Everybody's mom makes the best spaghetti. My mom made
Right.
great spaghetti. I went out with a girl one time and she bragged about her mom's spaghetti, and we drove down to her. She lived in a small town in Iowa, and we drove however long it was to get there. And she was so very excited to her mom's spaghetti. And her mom boiled a thing of noodles and opened a can of Hunt's tomato sauce, put it on there, and that was it.
Oh man. Hey,
Right?
she loved it though, right?
She did. It was bleh. I mean, but my point is, what you eat as a child sets the bar,
That makes sense. So
right?
we.
So for me, like I said, my mom was a great Italian cook. I grew up on the south side in Little Italy, and I love savory Italian.
Mhm.
I had a kid in the neighborhood that came over for spaghetti, and he dumped sugar all over the spaghetti, and my mom about threw him out of the house. But now, that was very insulting to us. But now, years later, I learned that in Italy, there's basically two camps of Italian cooking. There's Southern and Northern, and one of them is sweet and the other is savory.
Okay.
Some people like a sweet Italian flavor. One of our big competitors is a nationwide chain who claims to have better ingredients. They put sugar in their sauce. If you read the ingredients, it says sugar. They're putting
Okay.
sugar in their sauce, which I won't do because I don't believe. I mean, we get enough of that stuff in our diet, and again, it's
Agreed.
not as healthy a choice. However, I do know people that love that pizza and they do not like ours, and I will tell you that in my experience, people either they like that one or they like ours. They don't. I very rarely find people that like mine and theirs, and that's the
Okay.
difference because some people like a sweet and some like a savory. And so I'm not offended if someone says, well, I like this because I like a sweet. Okay,
Right.
that's fine. Some people like dark chocolate. Some people like milk chocolate. Some people don't like chocolate.
So
But
we
for
talked about.
we're
Yeah. So we
talking about
talked.
we're talking about the five pillars of pizza. And so to me, the crust is important. How you make the crust, for me, the best pizza has Italian homemade bread. Start there. We're going to make the best homemade bread, and we actually sell this in kits. You can buy a homemade bread kit. So we take a loaf of that bread, put it in a pan, send it home with you, raw. You let it rise, you bake it, and you have homemade bread at your table. You have the house full of homemade bread because that's its natural use. We're not trying to force pizza crust to be bread. We're making bread into bread. And we have people that buy, Thanksgiving and stuff, they'll buy 5, 6, 7 loaves of that to take home and feed their families.
So what is the Northern Lights pizza approach to dough?
Well, again, like I said, we start with a good homemade bread recipe. We
Mhm.
buy flour from one mill. It all comes out of the same mill. It's all spring wheat. it's it's consistently soft. We have all the dough is made by a very small crew of 3 people. They make all the dough for Northern Lights Pizza is made by the same people every day. Everything is, of course, it's weighed and measured. And again, like I said, we're very fussy about what's going to go in it as far as chemicals, and we try to keep it as close to earth as we can.
Perfect.
Close to natural as we possibly can.
So we've covered the dough. We've covered the dough. So now let's talk about sauce a little bit. And what are some of the indicators? I know you've talked about sweet and savory, and yours is savory. What are some of the sauce quality indicators?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand a word you just said.
The sauce quality indicators that show the quality of the sauce for like your sauce.
So, well, one thing is you got to have the right tomato, and so I'm not going to disclose that, but we use one particular kind of tomatoes. Yep. And then the seasonings that go in, again, it's Italian seasonings and spices and water. There's nothing, I mean, it's just that simple. It's as clean a label as you can get. And so here's a fun story. So I developed the dough recipe in one day, and the sauce recipe the next day. And it might have been the other way around. It was a long time ago. I don't remember which one I did first. Doesn't matter. But for all you budding chefs out there, I'm going to teach you something. If you're making a recipe and you're saying, you add a little of this and you taste it, say, yeah, that's good. You add a little more, whatever, add a little this, add a little that. How do you know when to stop? You stop when you taste it and you say, I want another bite. You cannot make something taste better than I want another bite. So that's when I developed the sauce recipe. That's exactly what I did. I just kept putting the things in until I got it where I want another bite. Stop.
That makes sense.
Right there.
That's great. So tell me a little bit about your cheese selection. I know we went over it before, but tell me your cheese selection and why that's important.
Well, again, there's a lot of cheeses out there, a lot of cheeses, and we tried a lot of cheeses to find the one that we want to put on our pizza. So we tested a lot of them, and there's some that are known, to be quote unquote the best of the industry. They hold themselves out, and that's how you say that's their reputation, if you will, I suppose. And we did and like I said, we tested against that company, and we did a double blind test, all the characteristics, how does it pull, how does it brown, how does it spread, the flavor, on and on. And there were roughly 20 people doing this test, and every single person picked our cheese over this quote unquote Cadillac brand, including the guy trying to sell the Cadillac brand. He thought he was picking his own cheese.
Amazing. So what's the balance principle? I'm sorry. What is the balance principle?
So let me ask you this question. Have you ever, and I would never do this anymore, but when I was a kid, did you put say sugar on cereal?
All the time.
Can you get too much? Can you get too much sugar in coffee?
100%.
Right. Okay. So that's again the same thing. You have when you're making a pizza, you can put too much of something on a pizza. And this is something that we struggle with, is not only just for consistency, but you can put too much and you can put too little. So and finding that balance of what's just right. Okay, and then you establish, okay, so this is what we want to serve. This is where the balance needs to be. And then the recipe is described. And so in the pizza stores, the crews knows how many ounces of green peppers to put on and so forth. because it achieves that balance. And then we also do a build order. We build the pizza in a certain order to achieve that as well. We actually just got a review a few days ago. A guy was lighting us up because we don't put the toppings on top of the cheese. He said, well, they're called toppings for a reason. And he said how he used to own a pizza place, and I'm thinking, used to.
Yeah.
You used to own a pizza place. So yeah, I'm sure you did what you thought was right, and you're used to have a pizza place. We
I
don't.
love that.
Yeah. And so there's always people harping on how, they think the best way to do something is, but we do things, and it's hard to teach new people, but we say everything we do at Northern Lights Pizza is done for a reason. You may not know the reason, you may not understand the reason, you may not agree with the reason, but there's a reason we do it that way, and you need to understand. So, for example, when we make a pizza, we put the onions and green peppers on, we put the sauce on, and then those vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that that's done is because they're protected by the sauce. They're not going to cook until that sauce is boiled for a while.
Okay.
And in the time it's in the oven, it gets to boiling, but it gets to boiling for a minute or so, and then it's done. But so you have vegetables that have bright, crisp, fresh flavor. You can taste that difference. If we were to put those on top of the cheese, that oven would destroy them.
Yeah. Nope. I see. You're teaching me and a lot of other people about.
So the cheese makes a really nice blanket to protect the toppings underneath. And same thing is true with like the meats. Graziano sausage is a pretty lean meat. The beef we use is real beef. There's no fillers in it at all, which is why it's a crumble. You can always look and see if someone's really telling the truth about their beef. If the beef is in a ball, like a marble or anything like that, it has to have a binder. Beef will not bind on itself. It crumbles. Try to take a hamburger and try to reform it into something else. It goes to dust.
Yeah. I agree with that.
If you've got someone serving beef and it's in a meatball form, it's got textured vegetable protein in it. There's no way it's all beef. Ours won't bind because it's just beef.
So what is the oven factor?
What do you mean? What is the oven factor?
Like how your cooking method and temperature affect your final product?
So we have. And I talk about balances you have to strike. We live in a world where people expect a knock on their door within about 30 to 45 minutes after they get the idea they want pizza.
Yeah.
I want pizza. I think my doorbell is I'm going to have it in my mouth in 30 to 45 minutes.
Right.
You don't have a lot of time. So that's why we can't do a true Chicago deep dish. That's in the oven longer than people want to wait for a pizza.
Right.
Right. And so our ovens are convection, conveyor. They're designed, it's one dimensional. Everything's got to cook in the same time and temperature and, kind of environment. So everything has to be designed around that. And that includes how many toppings are going on the pizza. And I mean, there's a lot to it. But we have over the years, found ovens that do the best job of that. Our ovens will cook a pizza in literally 4.5 minutes. That's crazy town.
That is pretty quick. So again, we'll just kind of cap our episode here. And so just to wrap it up, what separates a truly great pizza from an average one as your final statement here, and what your customers look for, just so they can take away something to remember with this?
Okay, so let's talk about cars. And I'm just going to pick on known brands. What's the difference between a Chevy and a Cadillac, or a Chevy and a Buick, or a Toyota and a Lexus? Right? One is average.
They're all by the same manufacturer.
Right.
When you're talking about those.
Yeah, but so if you're, you can get a car with cloth seats, you can get a car with leather seats.
Yep.
Right. So the difference between a great pizza and an average pizza is what goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we're buying the most real high quality, and again, there's people that have their taglines about having better ingredients. Um, that's better than what, right? If it, where ours is are just they're just real, and we're just ridiculously fussy. I'll give you an example. A fella came in one day and he was trying to sell me pepperoni. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago,
Okay.
right? I have an endless line of people that want to sell me pepperoni. So, oh, my pepperoni's blah 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 blah, and I tried it before. He says, oh no, we've changed it. It's okay, fine, whatever. And so we go through all the process, tasting it, you know. And he says, and oh, you're going to save so many thousands of dollars a year because it's so much cheaper, blah blah blah. And I said, well, one last test. We're going to cook this pepperoni on top of the cheese, see what happens when it doesn't have that blanket to protect it. And I had a lake of what the pizza people call pizza gravy or pepperoni gravy. That's what they call it, right?
Okay.
Lake of pepperoni gravy. The rest of us call it grease. It was disgusting. And I was like, we're done. We're done. I say no more. I don't care how much money you think you can save me. I don't care. The quality is not, it doesn't rise to the level of going on our pizza.
Perfect. Well, you've answered a lot of questions, and you've answered why and what separates a great pizza from an average one, and and what everyone should look for. And I appreciate your time today. I think you've given up a couple of your secrets, and you taught me a lot. So when I do give it that at-home effort, you taught me a couple things to try. I'll never be as good as you, but
well, never's a long time, buddy.
I'm not going to make that many pizzas, Carrie.
Yeah, I've literally made 1 million of them myself. So
that's a lot of pizzas.
it's a lot.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time today and all the information. And I look forward to episode 3 of Beyond the Crust here in the near future.
All right, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot, Carrie. You have a terrific day.
All right. Thanks. You too.